An age ago, the beating heart of our people was a king who knew only victory. He wanted nothing more than an honorable death on the battlefield. Yet, none could match him, and so he wandered the earth, becoming lost in time and tide. Then we too lost our honest purpose, while silk-clad men sat upon the throne. But tremble now, all cities that lay under the stars, for out of the shadows and mists of the land of promise, our courage has been rekindled, our heart has returned, and the world will burn.
Of the dull Christmas music. Hey, how you doing, everybody? It's Comic Book Team Up. How's everybody? I was sent that little trailer. What do you guys think of that for that Christmas special? I was
Make me all teary eyed, John.
okay, okay, maybe it works. I was thinking the music was a little too slow. I was hoping for like a peppier Christmas song. Made you teary eyed.
It's funny. No, just the Christmas music, but
Uh,
Christmas music plus you going to like Vietnam War kind of vibes. It's like I don't know. It makes me teary eyed. I was
oh,
thinking though, there was this thing I always wanted to do. I don't know if I ever mentioned it before, but every time I hear a very specific version of Carol of the Bells, it's almost like little children singing Carol of the Bells, and and I always think of a movie scene in my head that I used to play over and over again. And the only thing I've ever wanted to actually use AI for was to actually someday maybe create this movie scene because it would basically be a part. Well, it's basically a part of my novel manuscript or the backstory to it, and it starts off with two people outside of a concert hall where they're doing a Christmas like kids pageant and the kids are singing Carol of the Bells, and all of a sudden there's this battle in the background, and every time it hits a high note, it's one of the things happens that people die or somebody gets knocked down or stuff like that. They're running upstairs trying to keep this entire thing from going into the theater. So it's a I love one of the things I love about Christmas is I get to listen to this song over and over again, and I picture this entire scene in my head.
I mean, it's no surprise. I love Christmas. My wife and I love Christmas. And as much as I grow the beard, like it's funny because everybody's like, "Oh, are you a rabbi?" I'm like, "No, I'm Santa Claus." I love Christmas. I love Santa Claus. My wife loves Christmas. We right now we still have 2 Christmas trees up. We have one in the dining room. We have one in the living room. And if you drive by a house and the curtains are open, you'll see a Christmas tree with lights on. We keep it up all. My wife was just like, "I'm not taking it down." When we moved in this house, I was like, "Okay." So we have Christmas decorations. Well, she decorates the tree for the holidays. So she had Easter decorations and she had Halloween decorations on it. But it's our house. We can put up Christmas decorations, leave them up. So yeah, I love Christmas. When Christmas music is
Christmas is a really big. Yeah, Christmas is really big around here too. And the funny thing is that my youngest son has a girlfriend, and her family owns a Christmas tree farm, so she's going to fit right in here.
Oh, your son has a girlfriend? That's so gay. That's good. That's how old is your son?
20.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Young romance. She owns a Christmas tree farm. That's awesome. And you probably live in some Hallmark town, right? Where everything's everything's sweet. Do they decorate?
It's kind of rustic, but they do set up a lot of Christmas stuff, like a lot of beautiful little Christmas things, just here and there. In the town, it's not really a town square. It's more like where the bridge crosses the river, because it's all centered around the river. Like they have a nice big Christmas tree that's probably like 20 feet high, and it's well decorated, and you got nativity scenes all over the place and stuff. So people do go as much as possible here for a rustic place. You go all out for Christmas.
Well, I mean, I would be remiss, but since we're talking about Christmas, this Saturday, not Friday, this Saturday I'm going to launch because I'm working the middle shift and things are crazy at work with all the storms in New York. So believe it or not, electricians are the ones that have to repair all that stuff. So things are nuts. So I'm probably not going to even stream my regular show on Friday. So I'm going to launch my Christmas special, Christmas in July, this Sunday. Oh, this is the wrong one. This is Fund My Comic. This is still available right now. So I'm going to ship the Fund My Comic stuff first. This campaign is complete. It's now a continual store. So if you want to get my Christmas special, you can ship. You can back it here, and you'll get it. I'm hoping by like end of August. To be generous, I'm just tinkering with the dialogue. Bill will letter it. That takes a day or two, and then it's off to get printed. The Kickstarter, which I'll bring up now. I thought I was putting up the Kickstarter, but I'm always doing things wrong. Where is it? Okay. This is going to launch Saturday. So here's a preview of that. This is the preview page. If you could sign up just where it says notified by launch, it doesn't cost you anything. You're not under any obligation. It just helps Kickstarter. It just lets Kickstarter know you're interested, and they'll promote it more. So just help a brother out. And there's also all my back catalog, all my swag, because they allow add-ons, infinite add-ons on Kickstarter. So there's more options on this. If you see something on this and you wanted it on the Fund My Comic and it wasn't there, buy it and then let me know. I'll reimburse you for the shipping. I'm not out to screw anybody. It's Christmas. It's Christmas in July. So obligatory selling. I always be selling. And RJ, I'm just going to go down the chat and then we'll have our talk. We got Vaz.
Well, one thing before you get to the chat, John, I want to ask a question about your campaign first. Did you sell the big item, which was the picture?
No, nobody bought any, not yet. I mean, I'm buying one, but and then the guy who promised me he was going to buy one didn't buy one yet. So No, what we're talking about is the original artwork by Renzo. You know, so draw you shaking hands with King Fu. Yeah, did I sell any? I didn't sell any on Fund My Comic. No backers yet. Yeah. So maybe on Kickstarter. I people reached out and said that they were waiting for Kickstarter. I don't know. They got a problem with Fund My Comic for whatever reason. Luke is an up and up guy, but when Ethan Van Sciver went on Fund My Comic, a lot of people started boycotting Fund My Comic. You know, that's I back Luke up. It's a free speech platform. That means everybody gets to go on it no matter what. And whatever you did on other sites shouldn't affect Fund My Comic. So he's got 2 campaigns, just like everybody else, and now he's blocked from Fund My Comic until he fulfills. Everybody's treated the same, but I don't know. I still think Luke did the right thing. We got RJ for the Fourth Age. We got Vaz. Nobody home till Thursday. Pestle. I missed a few. Oh, okay. Well, you can watch. It's a bit late for me. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but work calls. Work gets in the way of fun all the time. We got Tony Grigo here. Tony, are you going to email me that script? John, RJ, what are your thoughts on Sony canceling any further production of physical media? I think me and RJ probably have the same exact take. What is your take, RJ? Did we lose RJ?
My take is I've always been into physical media. So the thing being, what's his name? The Clippy guy. He kind of brought up a really good point. I can't remember his name. Somebody will probably put it in the chat. He's saying that, physical media is no good unless you can access it. So we got to fight one battle at a time in the fact that you got to fight for access to actually own your stuff before you can, because having a physical media he's talking about digital games and things like that. So the physical media that I collect, I get no problem because it's all tapes and, records and things like that. There's no access key to it. But if you're talking about games, you got to get an access key, and some of these newer games, even when you have physical media, you have to upgrade. You don't have a physical key, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that layer on top of the entire thing. So you can't have one without the other. And if one of those goes down, the other one fails. So it's much bigger than just physical media. I'm a big physical media guy. Everybody knows that if you listen to my channel. But again, it's a lot more complicated. Although fight for physical media anytime. That's my thing. And I think John agrees with me that like a comic book is not a comic book unless you can sit down and put it in your hands and flip through the pages.
Video games, you got to get a disc or a cartridge. You know what I mean? Like. Because this is just one step away from them a subscription service per hour to play your video games. That's all it is. You want to play? I don't know, Grand Theft Auto. You're gonna have to pay weekly. I guarantee you that's the next step. So Tony, what do you think? Do you think James Gunn is going to be out as the head of DC Studios? Are they going to stay the course? I don't know, man. All I know is did you ever see All Quiet on the Western Front? Remember the boots? Whoever took the boots was the next one to die. It's just like taking the head of DC Studios is just like a cursed position. Just don't take it. Just let it go away. Forget about it. Let there be a moratorium for 5 or 6 years, and then I don't know. Get somebody who's not a goofball. Get somebody who takes it seriously. Me and RJ will make DC movies. We won't direct them or anything like that, but we'll be in charge of them. You know what I mean? Like, no, this just, and it all starts with the good script. The script, I say this, the script is the cheapest part of a movie. Just get some guy who loves DC Comics, write a good freaking script. So Zach Dan, we are having a blessed day. Today was a very blessed day. I'm late to take down my artificial Christmas tree, usually at the spring. I'll leave it up. Hope you're not.
I still have the Christmas wreath on my front door, even though it's turned kind of brown, to be sure.
Hope you're not working near or inside that leaning tower, New York. No, but I used to work right near it. And my brother spent, he just retired from that building. My brother spent, almost 30 years in that building. And, I'm sure he's in his house in Connecticut going, hey, I told him not to do that. He was one of the operating, building engineers for that building. I'll send it to you this weekend. No rush. I'm just busting your chops. One thing before I go to bed, John, did you get my email for the news? Yes, I did. I got it at work. And I should have read it at work, but I got caught up in writing my own stuff because I was on standby tonight. Also, DC animation seems to do better at adapting. Yeah, the DC cartoons are so much better than the DC movies. There's a new R-rated 3-part Nightfall that Chuck Dixon was talking about. He doesn't understand why it's R-rated, but he's happy that they seem to be taking it seriously and giving it enough time to have all the details. Oh, you got a super chat there, RJ.
Oh, thank you very much, Bailey. Why did Mark Millar and Garth Ennis write superhero comics when it's obvious they both hate superheroes and everything they stand for? On a related note, what little I've read of their work paints them as very miserable men. Yeah, agreed. Their writing seems to come from a place of misery. I agree wholeheartedly. But why do they want to write superheroes if they don't actually like superheroes? Because everything is about subverting expectations and making sure that you take down the man, supposedly, and all that kind of stuff. They're very much think of them as old hippies from the 60s. You know, they want to subvert expectations and try and make a name for themselves by tearing down what other people have built. That's postmodernism in a nutshell, if you ask me. So that would be the answer to that question. I think both of them. Mark Millar, not so much, but Garth Ennis, yeah. But Mark Millar can write a good story. He has at times, but I don't know.
They both can
Garth
write
Ennis
good
never been my cup of tea anyway.
Garth Ennis, he wears it on his sleeve that he hates superheroes. Why does he write superheroes? Because it sells. That's words right out of his mouth. He wants to write war comics, and he's very good at war comics. And his war comics, like every good war comic is an anti-war comic. They're really good. And and whether you like Garth Ennis or don't like Garth Ennis, if you like good, well-written war comics, read his war comics. But in order, just like all of these actors that just want to do these art films and then they do a Marvel movie because that pays the bills, that. But I got to say, I'm a fan of both of these guys. But Garth Ennis is wearing a little thin, like too little butter on too much bread. But he's getting on my nerves lately. So he's losing the grace that he earned with me. Whereas Mark Millar, that guy's like so schizophrenic. He loves superheroes, contrary to the statement. He absolutely loves superheroes. He gets giddy about superheroes. But I think he just knows which way the wind blows. And, he could write to sell and make movies. Because I'm reading Jupiter's Circle, and every other issue is so good. The last issue that I wrote put me in such a good mood. It was everything I want out of a superhero comic. But 2 issues before that, it churned my stomach. So, go figure. I think he knows what sells, and that's what he's doing. I don't know. We used to correspond back and forth and email each other. He stopped. I think he did away with all social media. So if I email him, it goes to his secretary and then dies there. But he used to respond to me on DMs, but no longer. Yeah, Garth Ennis' Punisher was great because it was this close to being a war comic. I do really like his Punisher. RJ Granny touted of the Samurai Jack and Primal guys now going to producing an animated adaptation of Robert E. Howard's Conan. Do you have any thoughts?
I think that would be a natural progression of his work. That is exactly, I think, what he wanted to do with Primal. Samurai Jack is one of the best things to come out for animation in the last 30 years, if you ask me. I used to have the whole series of Samurai Jack on VHS, for crying out loud, long and ever ago. It's funny, it's adventurous, and it's got a unique style all its own. Primal is sort of the same way, but yeah, that will be my take on it. If you want to go back to the roots of loving fantasy, and I think he does love fantasy by looking at his work, yeah, that would be someone I would trust with Robert E. Howard's stuff, and I would watch.
Yeah, I've adopted a stance of I just lower my expectations and don't get excited. This might be the one time I'm like, I'm set this to record, or you know what I mean, or set a reminder to watch this. So I'm allowed. Is Lucy putting the football there again? For me to get pulled. I don't know, but this one is getting me excited. I probably did a mistake, but I asked the local comic book shop to put me the new Legion of Superheroes series. The art looked okay. They reverted the race swap of the main character. Oh, there's a new Legion of Superheroes. I don't even know what's going on with. Let me know if it's any good. I still love the Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah, me too, Vaz.
I still love them. I love them for all the things that like I was embarrassed about them for so long, because I used to make fun of like Bouncing Boy and Lightning Lad, but now I love that charm. The older I get, the more I want like that innocent, like it was a clubhouse for kids with powers. They were 15, 16 years old, flying around with bubbles around their head. Yeah. Now I want that stuff. However, I bought the first 2 episodes of the Supergirl Survive, written by idiots that were. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks for letting me do it. I'll get back to you later this weekend with the script. Good night. I also think Mark. Yeah, he likes superheroes. Not sure what you'll plan to talk about. If you need ideas, how about which characters that don't normally team up? We were going to talk about. We have a topic for tonight. I'm just going through the chat. So our topic tonight is. You want to tell us, RJ?
I thought we would talk about lesser known mythological stories that we both like.
Yeah. Can I start? Because I just read one the other day. It's funny that you brought this topic up because I was excited to talk to this about something.
You go right ahead, John.
Okay, so believe it or not, I'm writing a story about Pan, the god Pan. I'm kind of fascinated with Pan. Like, how did he become the image of the devil, and what's his background and everything? So I was reading up on lesser known stories about him. But there's a story that Philippus, so it's mythology mixed with actual history. But if I'm saying the guy's name wrong, let me know. But Philippus, the guy who ran from Athens to Sparta to warn the Spartans at the marathon,
right?
in this myth, he met Pan on the way, dancing through the woods, and the Athenians despised Pan. In the Athenian mind, Pan was the god of hillbillies and rednecks, and pagans, and goofballs. Even the Spartans, but the Athenians were too highbrow to be worshiping that god, and they say that Pan was on his way out because Greek was becoming civilized. So he asked him, "What are you doing?" And he told him, and he goes, "Oh, Athens. That city doesn't like me." And Philippus said, "Yeah, but if the Persians come, everybody." He goes, "Could you help?" He said, "He goes, if I help, you guys gotta worship me in Athens." And Philippus said, "Deal." So when he got there and warned him, in real life, the Persians panicked. And so what happened in real life was, I forget what battle it is. I'm embarrassed that I'm forgetting this, but there was a battle, and the Persians actually panicked, and the Greeks got the upper hand because of this panic. And then when they wrote the history of it, somebody made up this story because Pan is the god of panic. And now, every 2 weeks or something like that for the next half a century, they had some sort of panic festival for Pan. And the guy who wrote this story that I read, the modern guy retelling the story, said Pan was probably going to be a forgotten god if not for the Persians panicking. So I'm kind of interested in that. How is that a cool lesser known myth?
I think so.
Classy to me says, I read Jupiter's Circle too. The beginning was good, but then the focus changed to the next generation. Everyone's a horrible person. I think RJ's right. The authors are dedicated to Ed Western. I don't know. I read I'm still in the 60s. Jupiter's Circle is first, then the Legacy. And I don't know. Some of it is so hopeful and everything. And then some of it churns my stomach. John Plattner dropped out of the Senate race. And I just think it's funny that a guy with an actual Nazi tattoo was being defended by the guys who hate the Nazis because he was one of their guys. So it just furthers the proof that I don't listen to anything Democrats say. As Mike Barron says, Democrats, the philosophy of the Democrat is whatever feeds the vicious child at that moment. 3 years ago, you're anti-Semitic, you're anti-Semitic, and now it's like they hate the Jews. You know, whatever this, because they're emotional. Whatever gets me right there. So we hate Nazis. We hate Nazis. And then what's it? Peter Higgs? I can't pronounce his name. He has some sort of like Crusader tattoo. Look, it's a Nazi tattoo. It's a Nazi tattoo. Nazi tattoo. And then they get a guy with an actual Nazi tattoo. And they're like, yeah, well, you know, people do things in their youth. It's like, shut up. Shut up. You know, how weird is it that the only Democrat with any logic and reason is the guy who had a stroke? You know, but there you go. But that's besides the point. You got a lesser known myth you want to talk about? Did I lose you, RJ? Did you fall asleep? I put RJ to sleep. Well, we'll talk about lesser known myths. Here's another lesser known myth that I'm completely fascinated by is Dionysus. I'll talk until RJ. RJ, just interrupt me when you come back.
Okay, I don't know if it's me or if it's you. I don't know what's going on. Something's digitizing. It must be me. I'm gonna have to close some things down, but you go ahead. Tell your story. I'll work on my end here.
Okay, so I was just talking until you came back. I didn't know if it was you or me either, because it's no storm. It's actually pretty nice today. So in this story, Dionysus was coming from the east, and there was the Greeks themselves physically repelled him. Like armies were coming out to stop Dionysus and his hordes of maenads and crazy women and drunkards from coming into Greece. So then Dionysus retreated, and then he came from another angle, and they fought him, and then he came from another, and eventually he made his way into Greece and went up to Olympus and marched into the throne room where the 12 gods were. And Dionysus is the son of Zeus and Semele, and he demanded a throne because I'm one of the gods. I demand a throne. And Zeus said, well, there's only 12. Oh, I lost RJ. He said, there's only 12 thrones. You know, so Hestia, the goddess of the hearth and home, got up and left and vacated her throne, and Dionysus took in. You better believe that's a big part of one of my stories coming up. I love that mythological story. I love that. Just think about that. The goddess of hearth and home was replaced by the god of wine and revelry. Yeah. Again, Democrats subvert democracy in their own primaries. Yep. I did not mean to spoil the story. Which story? Oh yeah. I already knew. I already knew. It's okay. RJ went metallic on his last reaction, so I guess he timed out. Is he still here? Yes, he's back, and he's better than ever. Are you? Are you better than ever, RJ?
Still here, John, but I'm starting to digitize browsers. Give me a minute, okay?
Sure. I could. You know me. I could talk forever. Let's see. Another interesting Greek myth that Endymion, the god, Eos is the goddess of the dawn, and she saw this shepherd, Endymion, and Endymion was this beautiful shepherd boy, and she just fell in love with him. And every morning they would frolic like a Greek shepherd would do, and they got married and they fell in love, and he started to get old, and then she realized, I'm going to be a goddess forever, and this guy's going to die. So she petitioned Zeus to give him eternal life. And Zeus was moved by Eos's tears and true love and all that happy stuff that he gave Endymion eternal life. But he didn't give him eternal youth. So he just got older and older and older and older. So he was this decrepit old man who just making babbling noises and couldn't die. So Eos begged Zeus to let him go. And Zeus couldn't kill him because a divine gift once bestowed cannot be revoked. I always loved that line from Edith Hamilton's real mythology. So he transformed him into a cricket. So every morning the dawn would come and it's greeted by her lover, the cricket, Endymion. I love that myth too. Not exactly myths, but I like Nathaniel Hawthorne stories such as Feathertop, the Rappaccini's Daughter, Carbuncle, the Scarlet Letter. Yeah, the Scarlet Letter is the only one I know. I don't know the other ones. I'm scared what they would do with the original Human Torch. Probably make him a flamboyant, like gay android that looks androgynous. Yeah, it's like a curse. Like, hey, John, they're making an Ant-Man movie. Oh, great. Oh, yeah, it's 2026. Oh, yeah. You know, I, I don't want to see any of my favorite stuff. Like, I'm at the point now. I just want to see all my stuff die. Just die. Marvel end, DC end, Star Wars end, Micronauts end. All the stuff that I love. Just end. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Battlestar Galactica. Just end. Just end. And then all the new stuff, they can screw it up all they want. Who cares? Who cares? It's theirs to screw up. But I hate seeing stuff that I love, like and they're not leaving. It's like zero tolerance. They brought back. Why can't I think of the name of the movie with Val Kilmer's movie? Not the Princess Bride. Princess Bride so far hasn't been remade, but they did it. With Willow. They brought back Willow and made it woke. Everything. I didn't particularly like The Witcher, but they ruined The Witcher, although it stunk even in season 1. Everything is destroyed. Hey, RJ, you back?
I am back. Hopefully, I have to switch over browsers and phone out. But I think we're good now.
Okay. So what myths do you have? You obviously had something loaded up and ready to go.
Well, actually, I did have something loaded up ready to go, but now that you started talking about Pan and things like that, I was thinking, I can't remember if it's Philoctetes or not. I think it's Philoctetes, but he's a lesser known character from the epic cycle for the fall of Troy and all that kind of stuff, because basically he was abandoned on an island as they were going towards Troy because he got bitten by a snake on his heel, and then he was complaining so much they abandoned him and left him on the island. All he had left was his bow and arrow, and he would shoot seagulls and things like that in order to keep himself alive.
Poor guy.
And they had to eventually come back and get him because there was a prophecy basically saying the city will not fall until he returns. So they had to go and like bargain with him. It's like, come on, you got to come back with us because we all want to go home. And he's like, I've been sitting here on this island for like 10 years. You abandoned me here and you want me to go with you because you guys all want to go home.
Yeah,
so, yeah. I love that part of the story.
A good. I love the story of Thor. I didn't realize this, but Thor had two. He basically had two servants. The mythological Thor, Thialfi and Rosvorg. Thialgi and they were brother and sister. They were elves, and Thialfi could run really, really fast, and Loki tricked him because Thor had the chariot with the two goats, and every night Thor would slit the goats' throats, roast them, and eat them, and then as the dawn came, they would regenerate, and he would have the goats again. And he was like bragging, we could have this every night. We're never gonna have to worry about food or anything like that because they were going on a journey. And he said, just don't break the bones of the goats. Don't break the bones of the goats. So of course Loki tells Thialfi, his name's going to drive me nuts. He goes, oh, that's because Thor wants the bones. He wants to suck the marrow, the best part. So of course he broke the bones and sucked the marrow, and then ever since then the goat had a lame leg. But this person that I was reading this, he was talking about in this story that I was reading. They said, here is a guy flew through the sky with a chariot with goats, and he had elven companions. This was proto Santa Claus. I know Santa Claus is like associated with Odin, but the whole Norse mythology, they had a lot of, Santa Claus. proto Santa Claus, origins of Santa Claus.
There is a slight reference to, I'm not sure if it's that myth. I'm pretty sure it's that part of the myth for Thor in Thomas Valiant #1. When my Thor is holding a feral, basically choking her over the side of the building. He's looking at her saying, "You remind me of someone, one of my slave girls," which was the woman, the girl. I guess she wasn't really a woman; it was more of a girl of the girl boy pair that he held as slaves, basically,
Yeah.
because she could also turn into a werewolf. And so there's a little Easter egg from Thomas Valiant for you.
Okay, cool. Jules says they didn't ruin The Witcher. The Witcher is the show. Apparently the stories aren't, and I never read the stories. I never played the video game, but the Dark Horse comics, somebody recommended it to me. They are excellent. They are, if you want to get like, like mythological cool comic books with monster lore and everything, like they're like a great D&D type comic. But the show stunk from day one. I still don't, and I'm like the kind of person that has to finish things when they start them. So I'm slowly suffering through. My wife is like, "Why are you watching this?" Because I just get mad. I'm like yelling at the TV. I'll watch like an episode in 10-minute bursts. So I'm on the second. I'm halfway through the second season. What is the purpose of that Yennefer character? She has no purpose. Like she doesn't interact with the Witcher. It's like two different shows stuck together. They don't cross. They have nothing to do with each other. I mean, and I know the Yennefer's supposed to be a white girl. I do think this Indian woman is very beautiful, but I don't understand what her character is about. The show sucks. I like Argus, the many-eyed giant guard for Hera. I think Heracles killed him, but Hera brought him back as a peacock, which is why their feathers look. Yeah, that Hera was very vain about her eyes. The doe-eyed Hera, beautiful, and that was her bird, the peacock. So I always pictured Argus like just covered in eyes. Maybe he had like a big gigantic peacock wing with eyes on him. Yeah,
That's one of the things you remind me, Zaktan. One of the things I do with my character Artemis, her powers are activated by basically spoken word, and she's very much into basically Greek mythology, but she'll use any mythology. So she has to activate her powers by speaking basically a part of a myth or a line from a myth or a title from a mythological character in order to activate the power that she wants to bring into activation with what she's going to do at the present moment. So that's one of the reasons why I love little snippets of, we'll say, obscure mythology. And when we get to sell Thomas Valiant #2 and then later Artemis, you won't see it so much in Artemis because she's still developing her powers in that book. But in Thomas Valiant #2, you'll get to see a little bit of that. And if anybody loves little mythological Easter eggs, it'll be filled with that, because every time she uses her power, there's a reference to an obscure myth.
Jules says the books are woke. They literally have a part where one of the good guys says, "Of course we." Oh, I never read the book, so I'll take your word for it. I just assumed they weren't. I thought they were based on like old myths and stuff. So old myths aren't woke. Old myths are the best. It's pure sexism and violence. Women that are cooking. Odin's tricking all the ladies into sex and cooking for them. It's great. Have I ever read The Great God Pan by Arthur Machen? No, I bought it. It's upstairs on my shelf, and I have that habit of buying way too many books and never reading them. The comics are okay. One of them is really good. Yeah, I read two 4-issue stories, and both of them were excellent. Oh, that's a cool power concept. What's a cool power concept?
For Artemis, probably.
Oh, okay. My favorite piece of Greek mythology is the story of Orpheus. That's a good one. I guess it's more of a blessing than a curse that Elric have melded. Oh, yeah. Don't even talk about that, pissed off gamer. Don't mention it. Let's just pretend it doesn't exist. Because Elric is going to be a black man with what's it called when they have the white spots on their skin?
Albino?
Not because Elric's an albino, but like Michael Jackson, when black people have like their missing melatonin, so they have like white patches on their skin.
I no idea, John.
Yeah, supposedly Michael Jackson had it, so that's why he was getting the treatment. But I don't know. But they're gonna make that. They're gonna make a black person with a lot of that, and he's gonna be gay. You know, it's so.
Absolutely, if they made Elric, it would be.
So don't mention he's gonna be in love with his cousin. Yeah, vitiligo. Thank you. That's it. That's the word. Thank you. That's what they're gonna do with Elric and Melnibone. So let's not talk about it. Everybody collectively just pretend it doesn't exist. We'll wish it out of the collective unconsciousness. In the books, Yennefer is the only woman who girl wants more than anyone else. A big part of the novels is will they or won't they decide to stop pride and admit they want to cleave each other. Well, don't get that in the. I didn't even think that was. I still wonder why she was in the show. If that's the case, then they're doing a terrible job. And the show sucks. Geralt is a total simp for Yennefer. Everything sexual with males is male submission, child, lesbian. Even in the books, now, not that I wanted to read them, but now I definitely don't. Moorcock is pretty woke. I don't think adaptations. Is it woke? Because he was killing everybody. He was killing everybody. He was betraying everybody. I don't remember the first 6 books. I know the first 6 books. They're like little pocket novels. They read like comic books. I don't remember anything being woke. I remember being pretty violent. The only thing I thought was weird is Elric got a bad rap. He was actually a better person than given credit for. Yeah, he did some crummy things, but he wasn't this chaotic evil like they made him out to be in the DDs and demigods. All right.
When you were talking about the Pan myth, it made me think of, I can't remember, somebody in the chat is a Conan fan. You might remember the name of the book, but I think it was El Sprague de Camp did he basically took some older Robert E. Howard stories and then turned it into a novel. And in that novel, this was when Conan was a king, and he was, if I remember correctly, leading his entire army over a mountain or stuff like that. And I found it really off-putting when I first read it. So basically, they get a lot of help from a group of Pans that live in the general area, so they want to help them, so they guide them through the mountain passes and things like that. I said to myself, I don't like the mixture of the Conan mythology with just say early Greek mythology with Pan, and they had their own god, and they're basically all Pans and things like that. But after I thought about it more and more, and after I read the entire novel, it's not very heavy. So I don't know. I can't remember the name. If anybody remembers the name of that book, please tell me in the comments, because I'd like to.
Were they satyrs or were they Pans?
Yeah, there were satyrs, I guess.
Okay. Having only read one Conan, I've only read one Conan book, the very first story. I forget the name of it. The very first, I bought the collection so that it's just in chronological order that they came out, not chronological order of the story. So the very first story where he's the old king, and but the comic books I've been reading a lot. My problem with Conan is the world. Like, this is the Romans. This is the African world. It's obviously picked and chose. What do they call it? A pastiche of all the real world for different times. I just wish he made up his own world. You know what I mean? You don't need this. This is you want to have a Roman adventure, you go over here. You want to have an African adventure, you go over here. You want to have like a Hyborian Viking adventure, you go over here. I just wish it was more like 40,000 years ago, they didn't have any concept of Rome. There are woke elements, but Sapinski's product of Swedish society. Sapinski's voice even breaks, explaining his mother abandoned him to the Witchers. I sensed the sensitivity reader. Okay. Like I said, I didn't read the book. The villain Leo Barnhart was based Chad that killed child predator. Okay. Conan and the Satyrs sounds less out of place than Conan in the Marvel Universe. Yeah, that drove me nuts that they had the Savage Avengers and Conan was in the Savage Avengers. Did you pick that up at all? I mean, the art was great.
Yeah, I read probably the first 12 issues of Savage Avengers, if it got that far. It kept on going after I didn't get to. Well, my comic shop closed down. The one that I usually bought it from, but yeah, there was a lot of things in there that just when they put Conan, let's say, lying on the floor with some trollop that he had found on the street who had one leg and was using her leg to attack the people who was attacking him. I was like, come on, people, come on, this is ridiculous.
Conan would be put down by the Avengers. You know what I mean? Like, he's gonna stab, he's gonna kill, he's gonna have his way with the women. Like, but even more than that, it's an IP, and I hate when IPs interact in regular continuity, because it's only a matter of time before they lose the IP. And then what? We pretend those comics don't exist. Like the Shogun Warriors. As a kid, I avoided that comic because I'm like, the Shogun Warriors don't exist in Marvel, and now they do. Or Godzilla. Godzilla was in Marvel for a little while, and the Avengers are fighting Godzilla, and then they lose the rights to it, and then, to me, I'm just like, but Godzilla exists. He attacked. Iron Man was on the cover, and now Godzilla's not there anymore. So do we just pretend these comics don't? I know that's something a kid shouldn't be thinking about. The kid should just go with the flow. But I'm a weird kid who turned into a weird adult. So I never liked when IPs were put into Marvel. Like the Micronauts, the Rom, or Conan, or Godzilla, or the Shogun Warriors. So, come up with put Crom the Destroyer in the Avengers. There you go, RJ. Do you think Christopher Nolan's gang of sycophants will make the Odyssey a success, or will it not bring? All movies flop. All movies flop right now. I don't see, the only movies that are profitable are low budget movies. Nobody goes to the movies anymore. Are you going to the movies? What was the last movie you saw in the movies, RJ? People in the chat. We got 30 people watching the chat. What was the last movie you actually went, put your ass in the movie theater and watched? Nobody goes to the movies anymore.
The last Superman movie was the last thing that I saw, and it was probably it wasn't worth my time.
Right, because you want to see, but I think the last movie I saw was, I forget if it was Superman or Fantastic Four. No, whatever one was later was the last movie I saw. But like, just because I'm a comic book person, but nobody goes to the movies anymore. Nobody's going to go see the Odyssey. I'll dare say, even if it was a good movie, nobody's going to go. The young George Washington movie made money because it cost $15 million to make. That's the future of movies.
I think Jado made a really good observation in the fact that he's saying, excuse me, that it doesn't matter about all these other side characters and idiotic things they're going to do. Having Matt Damon as Odysseus is just stupid.
Yeah. Again, this, not to be pretentious, but me, Chuck Dixon, wrote a story, and I bring it up all the time. Yeah, he changed my story. I wrote a science fiction horror story, and it was graphically violent and explicit because I wanted you to feel trapped and claustrophobic. He turned it into a science fiction action story, and he's shopping it to Balboa Studios because they're actively looking for low to mid budget movies that they can make. And basically he told me we're making this to sell. I mean, I was making it just for self-indulgence, and he's a professional. He's not wrong. And I think that's the future of movies. Cheap to mid-budget. These gigantic $150 million block budgets, those days are numbered. I can't foresee, like, even if this was a great Odyssey movie, it's too expensive. Nobody's going to see this anymore. Do you want to go? Every time I go to the movies now, I'm thinking there's going to be some weirdo with a gun. That's in the back of my mind. And then you're in New York, you're not allowed to defend yourself. And if you do defend yourself, you're going to go to jail. So, and it's funny because my wife, we went to go see The Chosen in the movie theater, and we saw a couple of those Chosen Angel Studios religious type movies. And I'm thinking that's where the loonies are going to go. The loonies are not going to go to the, lesbian buys a bicycle for her girlfriend movie. They're going to, the crazy people who want to hurt people are going to go to the Christian movies. So, like, I don't want to say no to my wife, but I do look around every once in a while. You know what I mean? In the theater. So just, what do you guys think? Am I being paranoid? Yeah, I am.
I think that yeah, I never thought of it that way, John. But if you're looking back to last time, it was really desperately bad for economic reasons. Say the '70s. That's when you got a lot of movies that were low budget, and it was like, you know, you got shows like BJ and the Bear, and you got the things like I don't know, Cannonball Run and stuff like that. Even though they had a lot of people in it, it was a low budget movie, right? I mean, you got a lot of low budget, um, low budget stakes. We'll put it that way. Even if they got a lot of good actors in it, low budget stakes. And then now that we're in a, well, nobody wants to admit it, but economic downturn that doesn't look like it's going to go back up. They got to go back to low budget. They got to. I mean, it's got to a point where you can't afford to do CGI anymore. Just do stupid practical effects that will,
Yep.
you know, employ a couple of people who know what they're doing.
Well, I'm a big fan of low budget movies. Tony says the last movie so was Godzilla minus. I want to see that. I want to see that. I heard so. That was a low budget movie, and I think the people with the low budget movies, they got to be a little bit more creative. You know, they gotta you know, art through adversary. Oh, we can't do that. We got to do this. They got to think about it more. So I mean, what with the two big movies right now are like low budget movies that they found from like 4chan or something like that. Obsession. Are they any good? You know,
At the very least, I think Obsession ties into a very good modern day horror that people have, especially younger people. So, and that they put their pulse on what people are afraid of right now and listen to what was going on around them in the world, made a movie out of it.
yeah, the Oscars. I when did everybody in the chat, RJ, when did you stop watching or caring about the Oscars? For me, it was my last year of high school. I was
I
like,
think the third time Billy Crystal did the Oscars was like, I'm done.
the only time in the past 40 years that I paid attention to the Oscars was when Ricky Gervais made fun of everybody. That was great. You know, there's a reason why actors in Rome up till Shakespeare were considered crap. You know, they were right up there with tax collectors and child molesters. You know, you know what, they still are child molesters. So I don't like actors. I can name on one hand how many actors I actually like. You know, I like the same actors everybody likes. Keanu Reeves, what's his name? The guy Brendan Fraser. You know, Christopher Walken. You know, there's very few actors that, you know, when people say, what actors would you like to have dinner with? I'm just like, none. I don't want to meet these people. They don't want to meet me, you know?
Yeah, Bruce Willis, maybe.
Yeah, it's a shame that he has, to me, he has, you know, the scariest thing in the world, Alzheimer's disease. Oh, God. I just know that's going to be mine. That, you know, unless I blow up in some sort of electrical accident, that's going to be me. I heard Obsession was good, but it looked gory. Was it gory? Was it gory or psych? Because I find psychologically scary movies to be scarier than you know, my wife. When we first got married, we did the typical let's share each other's movies and stuff. So we watched, even though Roman Polanski is a piece of crap, I still love the movie Rosemary's Baby, and I find it to be one of the scariest movies ever made. Even though there's no gore, what I find scary about it is the psychology of this poor woman is trapped and everybody's trapped. Like the conspiracy of that movie terrifies me. She just watched it like, it was dull. And then, you know, she put on like a slasher film and she's freaking out. And I'm laughing. That guy's head blew up. Look at that. This guy's got brains all, you know, slasher movies I can watch and laugh. But like psychological horror, that scares me. The Oscar was relevant before the internet. It was the only way to see the movies that were nominated. Dinner with Sydney Sweeney. Yeah, there you go. There's two good reasons. Two good reasons. It's fun.
Duel.
I got kicked out of a board game forum because one of the things was because they're all wholesome, you know, a lot of Christians and everything, and they said, pick 3 people and pick a game. Who, and tell us about it. People are like, I want to play, Monopoly with Jesus and whatever. So I said, Sydney Sweetie, Kate Upton, and me, and we're playing strip poker. And I was kicked out of the forum. Before YouTube and streaming. Chris Pratt, I like. James Wood, I like. Yeah, like I said, when I say one hand, that's an exaggeration. But most actors, go get some sleep. Oh, you got to go to sleep. Yeah, have a blessed day. Thank you, Zach. You slipped a stream last week. You forgot to give me a blessing. So I know we keep straying from the myths. I was watching a video on the origins of elves, and they talked about how throughout Europe there was a lot of similar stories that may have been elves. Like I can't pronounce these names from Celtic mythology, but the Duana Dane, the children of Danu.
Yeah.
They basically elves, and then the Norse mythology elves, and then they talked about how elves were good, helpful, angelic beings, much in the line of Tolkien. Tolkien restored the elves, and as we got to more and more modern times, elves became evil and sinister. But Tolkien hit the reset button. So what we, according to this video that I watched, and who knows, YouTube, they could be anything, that elves, for most of human history, elves were like Tolkien, and then they became like Rumpelstiltskins and stuff like that.
It'll be, again, my pronunciation is probably not very good, even though I have some idea of how to pronounce it, but it'd be the Tuatha Dé Danann, as far as I remember. So there are the people that were in Ireland long, long ago, and when the other races started to come in, including the Celts, they fled into the hills and basically put themselves behind magic walls. So they had, cities behind basically partitions of glass, almost, you might think of it, but they'd be like gossamer thin spells that would hide them and things like that. And they're what eventually became known as the elves. And it was the Irish folklore that really turned them into more evil beings than anything else.
Yeah, I got to brush up on on Irish mythology. It's just that the names are so unpronounceable to me. Like I still think that Welsh isn't really a language. I think it's just a practical joke that they play on the rest of us. Like, So Jules says Sydney Sweetie would destroy you in poker. Your old man ass would be walking home like that's a risk. That's a risk I'm willing to take, Jules. John, you mentioned Polanski. Did you watch his Ninth Gate? No, I didn't. I took a film class in college. I was just a regular Star Wars and everything like that, and then we watched a couple of Polanski films. But at the same time, I learned about Polanski, so I kind of like avoid him. Like I used to love Woody Allen movies, and now the guy skeeves me out. I even defended the guy. I was just like, he didn't live with Mira Farrow, and Mira Farrow did make up that story. She admitted that she made up the story, but now there's other stuff, Epstein file stuff about Woody Allen. I'm like, man, this guy, how disgusting do you have to be for this 40 years? The lies about you are bad enough, and then the truth comes out, and it's even worse than the lies. I don't know. Irish mythology is alcoholism and crime. I just want to know where is Bono and U2 right now? They're the band that made their name, because of the Troubles and let's help the common Irishman. The common Irishman's having some difficulty right now. Where's Bono? Where's U2 making benefits to help the indigenous Irish people right now? He's too busy. I was about to say a dirty word. He's too busy shaking Carl Schwab's hand right now. RJ, did you think that Kingdom Come was a great way to end the DC universe?
What do you mean, like the book itself, or one of the things? Let's see. The only thing that I can remember positively about Kingdom Come is the fact that it did irregular things that you would think, what if this would happen? It was like when Captain Adam got basically sliced in half on the battlefield, and then the entire thing exploded and killed half of the Earth's superhumans. Stuff like that. It's like that would actually probably happen if there was superhumans. You know what I mean? And so it delved in a couple of those questions. I kind of like that, but it's not, the story didn't stick in my mind as spectacular as all that. The art certainly did, but
I really liked it because I liked the treatment of Superman. Now, to me, the biggest problem is Superman wouldn't have quit. Superman is Superman is Superman. But for purposes of the story, Superman quit. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got, how are we going to have the story? Well, Superman's got to act out of character, because he wouldn't have quit even if Lois died. He's Superman. He would have carried on. That's the great thing about Superman. But for the purposes of the story, and it's an Elseworld story, it's not a continuity story. But I like that Superman left, and it's the story of kids growing up in a house without a father. That's what Kingdom Come is. All of these superheroes, they grow up in a house without a father figure, and then Daddy shows up and spanks them all to behave. To me, it's like one of the most reaffirming Superman stories, unless I'm misremembering it. But that's what I remember it is, and that's maybe my wrong interpretation of wrong memories of our big inspiration for my character, the Patriarch. The real red pill is the Irish independence for the Anglo-Saxon was always woke. That's why Ireland is. Yeah, I know. They'll fight against the Brits that are basically the same thing, except one guy's kneel in church, the other guy's stand in church. One guy's think that the transubstantiation happens when the priest holds up. The other guys think it happens in your mouth. You take 4 steps back, it's the same thing, but Somalians can come all over Ireland and everybody's happy. I don't know. Kingdom Come, great art, boring story. They did Captain Marvel dirty, yeah. Well, when he was Billy Batson and he got the worm in his ear and it corrupted him all the time. Yeah, and I like Captain Marvel almost more than Superman. I don't know. Captain Marvel and Superman, to me, they rotate around each other. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, but it did establish that Captain Marvel could beat the crap out of Superman. Superman has to murder a child in order to win. But I keep trying to steer us back to mythology because I want to hear some lesser known stories.
Lesser known story. Honestly, the story that I was going to lead with, I've completely driven out of my head. But I'll have to think on that one.
I drive a lot of people out of their heads.
But there's when you were talking about the Thor story, there's a Thor story I always think about when I'm out walking or stuff like that, because there's a myth about when he was going down a river in I can't remember where exactly it was. He was going down a river in a boat, and there was a giant at the end of the other end of the river who was stomping in the river and causing these big waves, and it threw his basically he was going to drown. It threw his boat all over the place, and he had to grab onto the roots of these trees that were sticking out of the bank in order to save himself. Now, if you're in different places in the world, they could be rowan trees. What we would call them here would be dogberries, but they're now called, well, they were given the extra name of Thor's deliverance. So I always think of rowan trees or dogberry trees as Thor's deliverance. And whenever I go walking and I see, because there's a whole lot of dogberry trees around here, just lining, fields and things like that. I always think of the small myth of when Thor needed the tree to help him save himself from drowning in this river with a giant trying to stomp his way out of having to fight against Thor.
You making me think of lesser known Thor stories, but there's one where they were, I forget why, but Odin, Thor, and Loki had to go to Hela and ask Hela something, and they had to cross a frozen river to get there. And Odin and Loki were able to cross, but Thor had to throw and leave his hammer because he was too heavy to cross without his hammer. And then, of course, that made them vulnerable to attack. But I always thought, I don't know, it's a pretty unique trap. I mean, Thor in the comic books would just fly over it or whatever, but, can't cross the river with your hammer, Thor. All right, leave the hammer. And Thor's just nobody's going to be able to take it. But there's a lot of cool Did you hear the story about Odin steals the mead that grants you poetry from one of the giants, and he transforms into a bird, a gigantic eagle, as the giant comes to grab him back. So Odin swigs all of this mead, and then the giant breaks in as he's like chugging it down, and he turns into a bird, and he goes to fly away. And as he's flying away, he's farting because he drank too much, and basically spraying people. And now they have the gift of poetry.
There's a good story that you just brought up when you're talking about that. I think it's Fan, Fan of the Fan, where from Celtic mythology. So if I remember correctly, it was Fan. But he was supposed to be extremely smart because he didn't. It wasn't that he was supposed to be smart, or that he actually. There's a backstory to it. So there's a funny thing in the fact that a lot of ancient mythologies see the walnut as something that makes you smart, and now they're finding out that walnuts are very good for brain health and all that kind of stuff, which is weird. But there was basically a tree of knowledge that overhung a pool of water, and the tree of knowledge grew nuts on it, and the nuts, whoever ate the nuts would become incredibly smart. But these nuts would fall into the pool, and there was salmon in the pool that were eating the nuts. So a wise fellow wanted more knowledge, and Finn, if I remember correctly, was his servant boy. And so he found this pool and captured one of the salmon, which he was then going to eat, which would then give him special knowledge of the universe. And he told his servant boy, he said, "Don't eat any of this. This is for me," right? Because he wanted all the knowledge. And the servant boy was, if I remember again, was Finn. And when he was cooking it, he burnt his finger while cooking the salmon, and then put it in his mouth in order to stop it from burning, and accidentally ate a piece of the salmon, which then took all the enchantment from the salmon and put it into his head, and he became extremely smart.
That sounds like something a little kid would say. He totally ate the salmon. It was like, and I was cooking it, and then I burnt myself, and then I put my finger in my mouth to you know how little kid comes up with a scenario, like,
yeah,
he ate the salmon. There's a lot. I don't want to give it away, but I'm doing a couple of mythological based stories. So I've been doing a lot of research. So, but I don't. But there's a lot of cool Norse mythological stories that we don't hear about. The story about Brunhilde and Siegfried, that's a really sad story. She falls in love, and then he gets his memory erased, and she marries the wrong person, and then she hates him. And oh man, I was like reading that story, like my blood pressure was going up. It was just like the couple that just can't get together, kind of like that Shakespeare story. What is that one? That comedy. That's gonna drive me nuts that I can't think of the name of it. Dark Horse series, Norse mythology had the most. Yeah, that was Neil Gaiman and P. Craig Russell, and Neil Gaiman turned out to be a real piece of crap, but those comics were great. Those comics were really good, and I love P. Craig Russell. I feel so bad for Colleen Doran. Colleen Doran, she did this series called A Distant Soil that I really, really liked. And she's real talented, she's super woke, but she's a woke. It's funny because I'll forgive a woman for being woke, but I won't forgive a man for being woke, because to me being woke is very feminine. But poor girl is like, she made this book with Neil Gaiman, and like they were crowdfunding it just as all that stuff hit. And it's just like, she didn't do nothing wrong, and she's on Facebook selling pages from that book. And it's just like, oh man, can you imagine? Me and RJ making a book, and then you find out that I've been running a concentration camp. RJ's like, I didn't know. While you were saying that, it makes me think that
what is it? The story of Freya, who had a chariot drawn by cats. To me, that would be like, yeah, that's proof that women actually helped to create mythology.
Yeah, Freya, and in Norse mythology, it became like, or Norse culture, it became accustomed to give a new bride, a newlywed bride, a cat. That was like giving Freya's uh,
Blessing.
blessing. Yeah, and I was also reading that he had all these magical women in groups of three. You had the three fates, the three Norns, the three Grey sisters. You always, Shakespeare's Macbeth. You had the three witches. You know, uh, Hecate, the triune partake goddess or whatever. But this guy was making a case that Freya, Frigga, and not Sif. Freya, Frigga, and who was the third one? But they were all the same goddess. But no, there was Frigga, Fig, and Freya, and Fig was what was Odin's father's name? Bor. Bor had a wife, and they were saying that they were the same goddess. You know, I don't know. But Freya is also the sister of Frey. But whatever. Myth. Like as a kid, I told you I used to take index cards and I would write down the myths and I would try to put them in order. Reading the Odyssey must have happened here, and then but Hercules is over here, and Hercules is in also this the Golden Voyage of Jason and the Argonauts, and that they mention this. Like I would, so that stuff doesn't bother normal people, but it bothers me. Yeah, the maiden, the matron, the crone. Yeah.
If anybody, or let me say, when everybody gets their copy of Crom the Destroyer, there's one splash page panel where in the background you have the three fates.
Okay. I have I keep if I have like 100 freaking story. Please support Longbox Comics so I can tell these stories. But I have an explanation of Medusa. The three Gorgons, why two of them were mortal, but Medusa could be killed, and what exactly does it mean to be petrified, turned to stone. I love making explanations for these Greek myths. So you'll see that in the Metaphysician, my magical character, my Doctor Strange character.
Yes, just let everybody know. I've read partial script for Metaphysician, and this is going to be a book to look forward to from John.
Yeah, Andres, who did the Christmas magic, he's going to draw that because Renzo has got like 5 stories in a row to go on, and I got really good feedback from that Metaphysician story. The funny thing is all my Catholic friends loved the story, and my Protestant friends are like, John, you can't publish this. And you said a long time ago, like, how can you Catholics have this? This Pope is a piece of crap, and you said, yeah, well, that Pope's in hell. The next Pope, maybe he'll be a good. Like, we're kind of used to having, bad guys around, but this story, I don't want to give it away, but like, there's references to Jesus, and my Protestant friends thought it was like blasphemous. My Catholic friends were like, oh yeah, I got what you were saying. So
yeah, but it's historical too. So
yeah, it's based on a real person. It's based on a real person. And then once I explained that, one of my friends kind of backed down on his outrage. He was like, "Oh," I said, "It's a real person. The story's a real person. This isn't me being edgy. This was a person who thought he was Jesus." Oh, we already did this on It's Clobbering Time. Who would win, Zeus or Odin? Who do you think would win?
As much as I love Odin and would rather Odin win, I'd say Zeus most probably, just because, the power. He's raw power. Odin was always sacrificing this, sacrificing that for little bits of knowledge or things to keep his throne.
Plus, we have stories of his death. Zeus never dies. He can't be killed. Zeus. The Greek gods are the Greek gods are DC. The Norse gods are Marvel.
There's a really good, if anybody knows, what's his name? Douglas Adams, who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. His book, The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul. It has all the Norse gods in it. So basically, some of them can die. They don't really die. They just get consumed by the earth. Basically, they lay down and never move again, and a tree grows out of their head, and then they become a stream. But Odin survives, and he just basically goes into an old age home, and he just loves have people wait on him all the time, and he has this old German woman that takes care of him all the time and things like that. But it's a really funny. What's that? Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul is the name of the book. It's from Douglas Adams.
Oh, okay, you said that, but I'm it's late. It just went in one ear and out the other. What do you think of this comment? Catholics are used to blaspheming Jesus.
I'll say there are certainly bad Catholics who do that all the time. Yeah, that's why they have the Name of Jesus Society that was created probably about 100 years ago. Is like, we got to get these people who should be good Catholics or are married good Catholics to stop blaspheming so much. So I have to agree, unfortunately, with you, Joel.
I'm not gonna. I've come to the conclusion that the world is under attack, and all the Christian denominations, except the Mormons, they're weird. Because to me, the Mormons aren't Christian like Protestants and Catholics, because they don't believe in the triune Christ. You know what I mean? Like, and the Mormons, I mean, and Islam doesn't believe in the same God. Allah is not God. That's right out. That's right out, because Allah is Allah, and God is Jesus, God and the Holy Spirit. And the Mormon, the Islam rejects that, so it's not the same God. So it's not. Plus, Allah is a moon god. Yahweh is a storm god. They're different origins, different gods, different everything. So knock that off. But anyway, as I was saying, Christendom is under attack. So Protestants, hold hands with your Catholic brothers and go over there. Let's get the Greek Orthodox. We all got to unite and stop bickering over when does transubstantiation happen, and remind everybody else that Muhammad is Baphomet. And I'm not joking. Look it up. Look up the origins of Baphomet. It's Muhammad. Quirky explanations that fit into the ultimate Marvel modern day of Neil deGrasse Tyson and everything. I read that wrong. I just got emotionally upset when you mentioned Neil deGrasse Tyson, because he just annoys me. Like, to quote Khan, he tasks me. Marvel is liberal, Catholic, and Celtic. DC is right-wing, Protestant, and Norse. Really? How would you? I mean, maybe now, because I haven't read it in 11 years. RG, have you ever researched Native American, Pacific Islander, Asian, or African mythology?
Native American, yes, especially in the East Coast, Native American. That's why. Who put out the book about the Chinu? I can't remember if that was Graham. Yeah, I had him on my channel. We were talking about it the only time I had him on my channel. But that was a myth that was so obscure. And when I saw his book, I was like, wow, someone is really into Native American, especially East Coast and Central mythology, because that's something that not a lot of people know about. It's kind of, I mean, so would be the Wendigo in its original form, but you do have a couple of at the very least movies about that and stuff like that. But especially on the East Coast where I am, it's very interesting. There's supposed to be a mountain like north of where I am that basically was two giants were fighting. One was like a trickster god, and the other was a creator god, and the trickster god basically got defeated in this entire thing. And as he was defeated, he became a mountain, because in the basic North American Indian mythology, nothing can actually be created or destroyed. It's all just transforms from one thing into another. So as he transformed into this mountain, his evil spirit escaped by, there was a crack in the side of the mountain that opened up, and basically all of the monsters that would torment men over the ages finally started to pour out of this crack in the mountain from this trickster god. And that's where you get the Chinus, and you get the Wendigo and all these kinds of things. So really, there is some really good North American mythology.
Yeah, there is. When I moved to Albuquerque, I made friends with this woman, and she She was a liar. It took me a year or two to realize that she was just tricking the naive white guy who's like, Indians, yeah. Because back then I believed that all the Indian, not that they had magic powers, but I was more liberal back then when I started. It's funny because I started out college liberal, and by the end I was like, you guys are a whole bunch of idiots. But we spent time on the reservation, and she showed me a lot of the stuff. I got interested in Indian American Indian culture. And I also would like to say that the Chinu is excellent comic book. It really, Graham Nolan really plays up the claustrophobic fear of that comic. It would make a wonderful low budget horror movie. And I'm glad that you're kidding, because I think I'm not even joking. Things are getting bad. We got to put aside little differences, because we're all sitting at the same table, and then people who just eat on the floor are taken over. I'm glad they didn't touch Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy 20 years aside from that. Well, they made a horrible movie with that black guy who played. But I watched like the first 10 minutes of that movie, turned it off, and never went back. I love that. That book was one of the few books that I was laughing out loud. I remember being in a bathroom in a hotel and laughing so hard that I actually cleaned out my system a little bit more than I had intended, because that book just made me laugh. It was so good.
Yeah, the movie was a piece of crap. Yeah, but I'm with you, John. That was one of the few books. Like I'm reading Raymond Chandler's Big Sleep right now. Every once in a while, he pulls out a line, and I just snicker and laugh. But Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is full belly laugh.
Yeah,
can't stop laughing for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I want to read this. I only read the first one. I want to read the second one. Mormons are under attack too, though, because they're civilized away and very nice. I will go on record to say that they are the nicest people I've ever met. When I lived out in Albuquerque, I met a lot of Mormons. Some of my best friends are Mormon. They're all well-adjusted, nice, friendly, good, with the exception of those Lego people. I never met a Mormon that I didn't like. I just think their beliefs are wacky. But you know what? If you take 10 steps outside, look at anybody's beliefs, looking at that guy's beliefs are wacky. Looking at that guy's beliefs, and that guy looking at my beliefs are wacky too. You know what I mean? So I guess the bottom line is, how do they behave day to day? And the Mormons are really nice, sweet people. So any Mormons in the chat, you're welcome to come over and play board games with me. I'll even bring Sprite, because you guys don't drink caffeine, right? Our enemies don't know that. Yeah, absolutely. All the enemies know is that we ain't them. You're absolutely right. Jehovah's Witnesses are like Muslims. They're not murderous and killing and rapists and everything. They're just weird. But the thing about Jehovah's Witnesses is becoming it. Maybe I'm wrong, but becoming a Jehovah's Witness reduces your chances of going to heaven. Because don't they believe that only 144,000 people go to heaven? Yet there's like 3 million Jehovah's Witnesses. Why would anybody join a religion that's going to reduce your chance? Like Calvinists, don't become a Calvinist. You're not going to heaven if you become a Calvinist. Allah is Satan. I'm just going to leave that as it is. Lefties really want to bring back tearing the heart of human sacrifice in addition to portness. Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to. That disturbs me so much. That's like Planned Parenthood to me is the scariest thing on the planet, because people are so hoodwinked. Yeah, sounds like Pandora's box, except it's a mountain. Oh, get back to mythology. Did you ever hear of a monster called a knocker?
Sorry, John, you digitized on me for a second. What's the monster's name?
Knockers, like knockers.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, in the Cornish section of England, the coal miners would go underground and they would hear knocking. And a lot of it could be explained by like stress and things breaking or whatever, or echoes of other miners and everything. And, so they were down below the earth and they would hear knocking, and then they would, light playing tricks on them. They would see little people running around. So they started leaving out food for them. And then it became like a tradition that once a month they would leave like a salary for the knockers. Now, who really took it, I don't know. And they had like certain knocks meant warnings. Some knocks meant they were pissed off. And one thing that they all agreed on is you don't whistle. That drives the knockers crazy. So, like, you just didn't do it. The experienced miners would like beat up anybody who like, oh, I'm gonna whistle. You're not gonna tell me not to. And then the funny thing is, there was tribes in pre-colonial South America that had knockers, but by different names. Same exact thing. Leave out food. They ended up doing the same rituals. They described them the same. And then this archaeologist or sociologist rather found out that any culture that spent any time with workers underground developed some form of these knocker myths. And in Bolivia today, this actually gave me the chills when I was reading this. This Bolivia is a big Roman Catholic, doing the prayers, good. But then when the miners go underground, they worship El Tio, the uncle, and the uncle looks like this minotaur, and they leave not human sacrifices, but they leave sandwiches and offerings, and they have prayers that they won't say in the daylight. And when they come in the daylight, they're back to big because they swear there's something down there that needs to be appeased. You know what I mean? It's so terrifying. Now tell me that's not a comic book ready to, El Tio, the mole man living down there or something. Oh man, that's terrifying. Calvin, it's so strict that you have to. In Calvinism, one of the tendencies is if you doubt that you're going to heaven, you're not going to heaven. I mean, that's just human nature to doubt. Despite how jaded and pessimistic and anti-superhero he is, why do you think Alan Moore wrote such a great Superman story? Because he loves Superman. He loves Superman. Alan Moore loves superheroes. Don't. He was a geeky kid who loved superheroes, but the thing is, he was also a spoiled brat, and he also loves the smell of his own farts. But look at that picture of Alan Moore shaking hands with Jack Kirby. Alan Moore is this old bearded old hippie, but his face is filled with childlike wonder and awe. I'm still the last defender of Alan Moore, even though Alan Moore's going out of his way to make it difficult. Alan, knock it off. I'm trying to defend you. The Dark Fae of the Minds. I know they're really creepy. They're really creepy. Look up the knockers. There's a couple of things that actually, the knockers for some reason scared me. And do you ever hear of wreckers? Wreckers are real things. Am I robot now, RJ?
No, I'm good. I've never heard of wreckers either. No,
wreckers are real things. There's people they live by Scotland or they live by Nova Scotia. International law is anything that they found from a shipwreck you get to keep. So these people would put up false lights so that ships would hit these rocks and then come out and kill all the survivors so they could take all their cargo and everything like that. Just when you think humanity can't be worse pieces of shit, you find out that there's wreckers. And then when I was talking about that, somebody said the Rush has a song called The Wreckers. But tell me, the guy who made that movie, The Witch and The Norseman and whatever, The Lighthouse, that guy should make a movie about the wreckers. Oh my God, that would scare the crap out of it. Like 1,800 people on the coast of Ireland. Like they're all like, yeah, all happy and everything. Somebody's like, a ship. And they put up the false light. The next thing you know, Nana's got her axe to kill people. Help me. What did we get? Oh, we got some wool. Oh my God, I'm getting scared just repeating that. Yes, La Llorona. Yes. Have you ever heard of La Llorona?
Never heard of La Llorona. I'm learning some new mythology here.
Yeah, I'm like afraid to say Hispanic, but I'm just going to say it. It's a Hispanic thing. She's either Mexican, but the story is it's a woman who either couldn't have kids or she had kids and the kids drowned or whatever, but it's some sort of variation of that. So she's a ghost that cries and then like tries to steal your children. Tony, am I getting it right or am I mixing it? But I always thought that would. I have a story that called the Memoirs of Violet McCready, and it's about this girl who was there at the founding of Science City. So it's set in cowboy times in Arizona, but it's not a Western cowboy story. So it's her telling her life and all the crazy. She's like Forrest Gump throughout my world. This young woman, she becomes an old lady up until like World War II. And I'm thinking of putting a La Llorona story, like she actually met the real La Llorona. But remember I talked about I hired an artist, and then I think I got hoodwinked about AI.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. I have like I even threw away the files. So like when people like, let me see, I'm like, I can't. I got so mad, and then I asked somebody else to draw the story, but I'm a little overextended. So the story will happen, but I got to wait for other stories to finish so I could pay the new artist. Or you could buy Crow-Tail's Christmas special, make so much money that I can afford to start it right now. That's on you. The Vegas Underground is full of knockers. Is it underground in Las Vegas? Or, are we talking about like the underground, like mafia? Because I always thought like Vegas would be like too deserty to have an actual underground. No. That's part of that lava basalt system that that movie Evolution made famous. Yeah, you're right. South America's Catholicism is very paganistic. Yeah, they got that Santeria. They got a lot of mix of voodoo in it. And Browns are superstitious. No wonder they think the monster's the mind. Yeah, what if there is LTO? What is down there? I ain't going down. I'm scared. I ain't going down there. John, you work in subways. Have you ever heard the knock? No, because there's too much light. The person who is explaining these myths is saying that it's probably like stress. So they're digging, and then these people, they're not reinforcing with poles and modern methods. These guys were just digging with a pickaxe. So there was stress, or maybe it was echoes, and then they had like a little candle on the head. And we've all done this as a kid. Have you ever just looked at your reflection in a dark room, and it makes like your face turns demonic and everything like that? That's like the origin of the Bloody Mary and everything. So I think under those conditions, basically everybody's the same, physiology, the brain and everything like that. So they produce these same thing. But when I'm down there, we got lights. There's a guy over there blasting AC/DC on some Bluetooth speaker. So if there's any knockers, they got run over by a subway train.
If you're going down into the underground tunnels of New York, just listen to the blasting speakers of Perry Como, and that's where you'll find John there in the corner.
Mel Torme these days. I'm on a Mel Torme. Mel Torme, it's almost he's almost mystical with his voice. Like, I don't know. He's got this album called all the songs are about the moon, and I can't help but think of like this is a spell. This whole album is a ritual about the moon. So I don't know. I occupy myself when I'm doing repetitious stuff all day. The guy who made The Lighthouse, Northman, and Nosferatu was busy making a werewolf movie. Yes, seems like a waste, but William Dafoe is in it. Yeah, William Dafoe is one of the few people who doesn't need makeup to play a werewolf. Yeah, I can't believe they cast him as the Green Goblin and then covered him. You don't cover William Dafoe's face in a mask. That guy's got one of the most distinctive faces on Earth, and you put a mask over it. That was such a flub. Yeah, werewolf. I didn't see I wanted to see the Norseman, but it came and went. I liked the Witch. I liked Lighthouse, but I didn't see the Norseman. Hey, Phil Diaz is here. Phil, I'm going to be talking to you about getting that banner printed. I didn't forget you. I want to start doing conventions soon, so I'll message you. This is Zaid Comics, Phil Diaz. Everybody, I cannot recommend the Man with No Strings enough. It is not just one of the best indie comics. It's one of the best comics right now. Man, this guy's got a good imagination. And Phil, I want to do a project called Crisis on Independent Earths, Crisis on Indie Earth, and I would like all of us to contribute a couple of pages to it. So once I'm gonna write out the first section that starts the dilemma, and then give everybody this is how I envision it going, but whatever, and then we'll work out basically everybody owns their own stuff, you know what I mean, and then everybody will get the files. You print them out. You want to sell them. You want to give them away. You do whatever you want. But it'll be better than a catalog. You get a catalog of fourth age comics, Longbox comics, Zaid comics. this will just be a continuous story. So you'll see your characters, you see your art and everything like that. And then at the end we have like this is where you could get all the stuff. I think would yeah, you kind of did it with the CG book. So just think of like a people who actually care about comic books doing this stuff. Yeah, we got to hang out soon. Yeah. Let me know when you're anywhere near New York. Werewolf is the correct spelling. Another New Mexico legend is we have those abuelos. If you're a bad child, Los Abuelos will come to your house, stick you in a sack, whip you, and take you. Yeah, that was Los Epstinos. Yeah, they would come and kidnap children and drink their blood. When I was a kid, I saw an episode of the Real Ghostbusters that dealt with supposed New York urban legend called the Pillar of New York. Wow, I don't know anything about that. That sounds cool. Any local legends up by you beyond the North Pole?
Well, we already went over the one with the giant mountain and the trickster god. Besides that, there's not a whole lot that I can think of, but there's very interesting history. You live in the East Coast, no matter where you are, there's a lot of good shipwreck history and things like that, where there was, some of the things people go through, you could make a myth out of it. There was one that was around here where they shipwrecked on a small section of Sandbar Island that was off of the main island when they were coming in, and basically they had to abandon the ship, and everybody swam in because it was so shallow, and they were able to do that. But then by the time they went to go back to try to get their supplies, the entire thing had frozen over. So they're with pickaxes and rocks and pieces of branches trying to dig into the frozen over ship in order to get the foodstuffs that they could use to survive for the entire winter. So I always like little histories and things like that besides the mythology. I always think you could turn those into mythology so easily.
You forgot there's a Canadian myth of seizing the means of production, and everybody's living equitably, and this myth by this goblin called Karl Marx created this. He lived beneath the earth, but he didn't knock. He actually pulled the miners down and shook them for their money. Am I watching the new season of X-Men 97? No, I never watched. By the time the X-Men 97 cartoon came out, I couldn't stand the X-Men. And now I just reread all the John Byrne, Terry Austin, Chris Claremont X-Men, and now I'm going to read the John Byrne X-Men. So right now my appreciation of the X-Men has gotten really high. I might actually go back and watch the old X-Men 97 cartoons and then lead into the new ones. Because what do you think, RJ? I was talking about to go to the what do you think of the God Loves Man Kills, that graphic novel of the X-Men?
That's the one where basically Kitty says uses the racial slur, right? Is that the one?
No, that's X-Men 190. That's X-Men 197. I'm talking about.
I have this graphic novel. Yeah, I have that graphic novel. I don't remember even the basic story of it. If that's not
it's I hated it. I hated it when it came out. But somebody brought it up.
Claremont, though.
It's Chris Claremont, Brett Anderson. To me, this is ground zero of everything that's wrong with the X-Men. This is right-wing conservative Christian guy is a bigot and hates the X-Men. X-Men is now only about bigotry. Even as a kid, because in the Reagan years, it was just every villain on TV. Every villain was the preacher, whether it was the Protestant preacher, the televangelist, the priest, the Catholic priest. It was never the imam, it was never the rabbi, it was never the guru. It was always the Catholic, whatever, Greek, Protestant, Roman Catholic, whatever priest. So even when it came out, I was like, this is so done to death. I'm so tired of this. Like right now, it's the alt-right Nazi. Like whenever Superman fights the Klan, you just roll your eyes. It's like, oh, the Klan again. We're just rolling out the same trope bad guy. So that's why I hated this. And then this became the defining X-Men ever since. bigotry, bigotry. We can't get a break. We prejudice, bigotry, bigotry, bigotry. I want to see the X-Men fighting space whales and the Badoon and the Shi'ar, the Emperor Guard, and go to the Savage Land and riding dinosaurs. That to me was great stuff. Every once in a while, you have the Sentinels, because they're the X-Men. That's what makes them different than the Avengers. But two stories that define the X-Men with Days of Future Past and God Loves Man Kills. Days of Future Past is amazing, excellent.
Yep.
But this one, I hated it when it came out. So I realized I read it biased going in. So I promised the fan that I would reread it. So it's on top of the pile. I'll give it an honest new reading.
I think you hit the nail on the head when there's a phrase you used earlier about an hour ago, art through adversity. That's the only way comic books, and I think a lot of art actually has any true meaning to it, because sorry to say, but if you take the guardrails off most artists and don't have a leash on them to tell them what they need to do and give them limits to what they can do, everything goes wrong. And I think that's what the graphic novels, when they originally came out, were, we don't have, I don't think they were comic code protected and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, do whatever story that you want to do, and you give Chris Claremont too much rope, he'll hang himself.
Well, that's why they hated Jim Shooter. Jim Shooter was adversary. He forced them, he gave them rules, he gave them deadlines, he gave them, rules is whatever. He told them, this is what you got to do. This is what you got to do. And they hated him. Under Roy Thomas, they did what they. How many times under Roy Thomas did you see the dreaded Deadline Doom, and it's just a reprint of a comic that came out 15 years earlier? That stuff didn't happen under. That's why he's hated, because nobody wants to become a comic. They become a comic artist because you're a kid. And kids like to sleep late and they want to have candy for dinner. You know what I mean? You don't become a comic book artist and then you're gonna have the man coming down on you, yelling at you about this art doesn't work. This story's no good. We got to do. And then Jim Shooter left. Tom DeFalco pretty much kept up that standard, or whatever. And then you got to like the Bill Quesada, right? Joe Quesada era, and it was just like they kind of, you could have gay superheroes, you could do this, you could do that, and the rules just got lack. Now they got no rules. Now there's typos. People don't remember continuity, and they stuck. You need a strong fist at the top of you need the creative people, but you also need the alpha male on top to smack them into goodness. Like my father says, little spanking never hurt nobody. The old stuff is good, except the final season, the animation is bad. Okay, I'll check it out. Like I said, my interest in the X-Men is at an all-time high. Are you going to follow up on your X-Men show with the new stuff from John Byrne? Yes, but I'm not going to do it page by page by page by page because it's new. I gave myself the rule that a comic has to at least be 5 years old and not in continuous print, because that's taking money out of their pocket. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to take The Man with No Strings and do a page by page by page reading of that comic book, because go buy that comic book. But I will do God Loves Man Kills because it came out in 1983. You know what I mean? I'm not taking money out of anybody's pocket. I don't like when people steal my videos, and I don't want to steal people's comic books. I thought a book that collects creation myths from different cultures. I'm reading the African ones. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. What's the name of the book? So it's not on top of the pile to protect the dust to remind you never to read it. It literally was on the bottom of the pile. I kept putting it on the bottom because I still hate this book. Every time
I know exactly what Vad's talking about, though. Sometimes you got piles and you just throw the worst piece of crap on top. So that
I didn't get it. Okay, now I get it. Yeah. It's interesting that according to the mass media, far right exists, but not a far left. Yeah. Yeah, because they are the far left. When you're far left, anybody with moderate views, that's why that right now, you just explained it, why the average lefty thinks that Nazis are right wing. Because they're, here's conservatives, here's Republicans, whatever. Nazism is on the left because it's collectivism, but they are so far on the left that they're looking right to see the Nazis, but the Nazis are still left wing.
Which is funny, Alessandro. That's a good way to think of it too, because the right would have a natural end to it, and that's why the far right is. There is a natural end to the right, but there's no natural end to the left. It will never stop going further and further left. It will always try to continue to push further and further left.
Yeah, it's still in shrink wrap. I didn't even want to look through it yet. I'm just so scared that it's going to be bad. But jokes on you, Heather Antos. She went around telling people not to buy. Chuck Dixon had a funny thing on his video today. He says he wants to see if there's any way he could pay Heather Antos to tell people not to read his new story. Because every time she tells you not to read it, it Streisand affects it. So me and Chuck have a story, and Heather Antos is going to tell you not to read it. I should say, oh man, how funny would that? I should somehow get in front of Heather Antos, hold up the story at a comic convention, and tell her that women can't become men.
Yeah.
And then count the cash. Count the cash. Season 2 is getting back into Apocalypse as the villain. Okay, you sold me on it. Have I ever read Yucatan 1512? Sounds right. No, sounds cool. What is it? How is the inking on Elsewhere? Yeah, it's not John Byrne inking it. It's not Terry Austin. I think Terry Austin died, right? But so, I mean, you could see the John Byrne-ness, but it doesn't look like classic John Byrne. So I don't know. I don't know who the inker is. The cover had a little AI coloring feel. My friend told me not to read 1984, so I guess that's it. Oh, read 1984. I tell people that you're not truly educated until you read Fahrenheit 451, 1984, and Brave New World.
Yep. We had to read those in high school, for crying out loud. It was required reading.
You know what else is required reading? RJ, you're probably the only one that I know read this. Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut. It's like a 6-page story. Everybody read Harrison Bergeron. You can get it for free online. It's RJ. Are you familiar with the story?
No, I'm not.
Oh my God! It's this guy predicted progressivism back in the early '60s. It's progressivism. It's the logical product of progressivism. If I remember, I'll send you. You got to read this story. Oh my God! I'm telling you right now, RJ, you're going to read the story, and it's going to be the subject of one of your Saturday sermons.
Okay.
Yeah,
sounds good. Send it to me.
So
Send it along.
Yeah. RJ, in your opinion, what is the greatest Western? What? Tony will not let us stay on mythology tonight.
Tony, I could. That would take me some soul searching to figure out what the best Western is, but I always go. I'll just say the one that's been intriguing me for the last number of years would be the original 310 to Yuma. I think I mentioned this on the channel before.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a spectacular movie, and it's not only well acted, but the story is like the new 310 to Yuma. It's a piece of crap. I mean, it's good actors and everything, and I'm sure that's more historically accurate and all that kind of stuff. But it's the down and dirty. Let's just say. Desperation of the guys in 310 to Yuma that really makes the story. And I think people coming out of or having lived through the 30s would be able to act that out in a way that would make it feel much more real, and that's what you get in the original 310 to Yuma.
My favorite Western, and I'm not saying it's the best Western, but my favorite Western is The Wild Bunch. Oh my God, do I love that movie. Oh, me and my friend, the first line of that movie, if they move, kill them. Just such a great Ernest Borgnine. And it's a weird Western because there's cars, machine guns, because that's the whole point. It's the end of the West. Such a good movie. So violent. You can even find YouTube videos of people reading Harrison Bergeron on YouTube. I read it in high school, but it was entertaining to listen. Yeah, it was. Yeah, all right. So somebody could back me up that it was good. Smut books were predicting progressivism in the 1960s. Only moderates were surprised by the 2010s. JFK, uber progressive, Frank, uber yeah. Harrison Bergeron. It's about everybody's now equal, and this is the logical extent of what happens when everybody's equal. Because what I remember reading the book in high school, or the story in high school, and laughing at how absurd it is. And now it's not too absurd. We're like this close. You know.
It's funny, Joel. You should mention it. Again, I mentioned that I'm reading Raymond Chandler's Big Sleep right now, and you don't really get this when you watch the movie, but it's set in I think 1932, right? And this is in Hollywood, in so we're talking the most progressive part of we'll say progressive, quote unquote, part of America at that time, and the whole story revolves around the fact that these people are running a illegal crime syndicate, which is selling pornography. This is less than 100 years ago. So
Hmm.
you can see how far our civilization has come, and we'll say in the progressive direction, quote unquote.
Did you ever read the Booster Gold comic?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Booster Gold. And believe it or not, I liked what they were going to do with him in the New 52 as the guy. Remember, like he was going to go back and fix DC continuity, and he told Batman how serious he really was, and he acts like a goofball, so nobody would suspect that he was. I thought that was so good. As far as I know, that was dropped, but I thought that was so good. But anyway, one of the things that always bothered me was in this fascist future that he escaped from, they banned football. Like he was a football player, then they banned football. I always thought, like, what are you nuts? In a fascist future, they would promote football and sports. That it would keep people distracted. You know, they say religion's the opiate of the masses. So sports. So's porn. You know what I mean. Like I always thought, like that bothered me. That, and of course, it's liberals writing what fascism is, so they just completely misunderstand it. I don't know. That you just made me think of that one. That has appropriate of nothing because my brain's wandering now because I mentioned you mentioned Vonnegut. Have either of you read Breakfast of Champions? No, I read the Slaughterhouse Five, the Monkey House book, which had Harrison Bergeron in it. That's a collection of short stories, and I know I read something else. Cat's Cradle. Oh my God, did I love Cat's Cradle? So good, so good. But I don't think I read Breakfast of Champions. Equity is enforced. Equality, not equality. Yeah, yeah. Read Harrison Bergeron how they enforce it. It's hysterical, but it's also scary. RJ, with the infamous unpublished Swamp Thing story by Rick Bates now being published, do you think it's good taste to have Jesus Christ as a character in the comic book?
Absolutely not. I would not trust. I don't trust these people with Superman and any other DC or Marvel hero that's been around for the last 80 years. And to put a religious figure in it. See, I'm with John. I don't want to bring this into too much of a religious context because we're talking mythology and all that kind of stuff. But with like, I'm in Canada right now, and somebody pointed out something really interesting to me the other day is the fact that they passed this new bill. I don't know, it was C-16 or something like that, basically saying that it's illegal to quote passages of the Bible. You can't do it. And someone brought up and said, okay, but is it illegal because those passages are from the Old Testament? Is it illegal to quote them from the Torah? Because nowhere mentioned that. Is it illegal to quote similar things from the Quran? Nowhere does it mention that, right? So any leftist way of trying to take down Christianity, they're going to take. So I do not trust anybody of that ilk to even give, let's just say, constructive criticism or some kind of interesting take on it. I do not. It's all destroy, 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 the backbone of Western civilization, which I'm adamant that it is Christianity.
Well, for me, I would it be good taste? It depends on how it's done. Like I'm gonna have a religious. I have a. I'm working on a script called The Three Wise Men, and in the story of the Three Wise Men, they go to Joseph and Mary's house. Not the manger as people believe, but in the actual scripture, they go to. So Jesus was born in the manger. They didn't stay. They didn't live in the manger. He was just born. The next day they went back to Mary and Joseph's house, and that's where the three wise men met Mary. Did they just easy gifts? We're out of here now. We got to catch a train. They stayed. They had a conversations. That's what this comic is about. So I'm going to have religious people in a comic book. So I would be a hypocrite to say you don't have religious people in a comic book, but you got be prepared. Do your homework. Do your research. If you intend to be blasphemous or if you intend to be, offensive, be prepared for that. I'm not the one to tell you what to do, but be aware of what you're doing, know why you're doing it, and be prepared. So I'm having a religious character in a story who thinks he's Jesus. It's going to be clear in the story that he's not Jesus. Will some religious person get offended? Probably. I plan on having a story where the three wise men and Mary and Joseph have a conversation. Will somebody get offended? I hope not. Because I don't think there's anything offensive in that. But whatever. So my answer is do whatever you want, but be prepared for the consequences, and don't just do it willy nilly. Just if you're doing it to be the edgelord shocking guy, grow up. But I don't think Rick Veitch was doing it to be edgelord shocking guy. I think he was building up to a story that I've always wanted to read. I ordered it. It didn't come yet, but I want to read it because it was like a 24 issue comic book that at the last second they killed the climax. So just for that reason alone, I want to read it. They banned football because the third worlders took over their love of cricket, soccer, and crime. Liberals consider football and dancing equivalent to abortion, so evil fascists would bet. Yeah, that's true. Maybe football was too right wing, too wholesome American barbecue guys like it. Joseph is like, oh no. Every argument from the left is dishonest. Yeah, I know Eric July didn't make up this quote, but I saw him say it, so I'll attribute to him as argue. All the left does is pretend that they don't know what you're talking about and then argue with their falses. I just murdered it. But they pretend they don't know what you're talking about, and then you can't have an argument, which is why I've been going on my tirades about we need to define our words. We need to know what is fascism. When somebody starts talking about fascism, I'm going to stop them. What does fascism mean? Explain it to me. Well, how can we have an argument, a discussion, when you don't know what fascism is? What is socialism? What is anarchy? What is, define all these things. What is a liberal? What is a conservative? Fascism is Italian. So it's Monica Bellucci. Now I love fascism if it's Monica Bellucci. Have I ever read Italian or European comics? Sure. Not enough of them. I've really enjoyed what I've read. Really. I got to get more into it, but it's a whole other rabbit hole. What about you, RJ? Do you read European comics?
I wish I had more chance to. That's what I don't really. Let's just say, last time I was in Europe, which was a couple of months ago, my bags were way too full and overweight. If it hadn't been for that, I would have had a dozen or more really thick comic books out of the what was it? The airport little kiosk place in I think it was like Croatia was where I was, because even if I couldn't read the language, it would just be so beautiful to pick up new comics and see people who love comics.
Yeah, I got the Tex Ritter. Is that the Italian cowboy comic? It's an American Western.
Blueberry?
Maybe Blueberry. I got too. That's Mobius. I love Blueberry. I got a French comic called Blue Coats. Believe it or not, it's a French comic about Northern soldiers during the American Civil War. Tex Ritter is an American comic set in the American. I'm sorry, Tex Ritter is an Italian comic set in the American West. So I got that. I know I got other Western comics. I have European comics right over here. I don't know, but I want to get more. The problem is, there's a company. I'll try to I'll try to remember the name of the company and say it next week. But there's a company that brings them into America. Chuck Dixon's always talking about them. So if you listen to this channel, I recommend going to Chuck Dixon. Ask Chuck Dixon on YouTube. Every Wednesday he does like an hour video, and he brings up these Italian graphic novel, French, whatever, all European, and they bring them to America. A lot of them are in English for the first time. I heard that New York is thinking of importing Canada's laws for unaliving yourself. What does that mean? Made. I hate when people say things like unaliving yourself. We got to speak English. We can't start 1984 in our language. Yep. So what? We're gonna do a medically assisted suicide now in New York, because that's what you do when you run out of money. You know, you remember when they all made fun of Sarah Palin, the death panels? All right. We've been talking for exactly 2 hours, and I'm babbling, and I realize that I'm not giving RJ any chance to talk. So, RJ, is there anything you'd like to say before we call?
No, but I think that we should put a pin in this conversation and pick it up probably, a month from now when we both had more chance to think about obscure mythology that we want to talk about.
Oh, I could have
thoroughly enjoyed that.
I could have talked about obscure myth all night long. I got a million of them in my head. But I always try to adjust the chat. So I blame the chat for distracting me.
Well, thank the chat for being here as well.
I don't really blame the chat. The chat is fun. Thank you, guys. And go to Fund My Comic and pick up Crom the Destroyer. I know RJ's almost done. I've been seeing the work. It's so good. I can't wait. I'm excited to get it. And I know all your stories and everything you went through. This is Art Through Adversary, labor of love. Anybody less than 9 feet tall and covered in body hair and a foot that's a meter and a half long would have stopped making this comic book. But Bigfoot prevails. Yeah. So RJ, yeah.
Labor of love, John. Labor of love.
It is. Yeah. Emphasis on labor. You went through a lot to make this comic. So I can't wait. And on the opposite, this Christmas special just came out so easy. Yeah, I got a well-oiled machine. I gave myself plenty of time. The only thing that can stop this comic is the printer explodes or something like that. So back it on Fund My Comic, you'll get it real soon. If you back it on Kickstarter, you'll get it when I said I was going to ship it November, December. So I'm going to launch this Saturday on the Kickstarter, but the Fund My Comic will always stay up. So you have two choices, whatever you want. Freedom of choice. All right. Cinebooks. That's the name of the company. Cinebooks. Thank you. Cinebooks. That's the name of the company. All right. At that point, RJ, anything you want to say?
No, John has said it. Go to Fund My Comic to pick up both of our books. The links are in the description of my video if you're watching on my channel.
Yeah, the links are in the description of mine. Remember, if you're watching on my channel, subscribe to RJ of the Fourth Age is the name of RJ's channel. If you're on RJ's channel, like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications and everything for John's Longbox. That's my channel. Thanks a lot, everybody.
See ya.